What's going on, everyone? In this video today, I'm going to do a response to Tim Thebodeau's video going over USAPL Nationals being a mess, so you can hear my thoughts on it and what I agree with and what I disagree with. So let's get right into the video. Alrighty, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to the channel and checking out another video. And if you're new here to this channel and you don't know who I am, maybe you're coming because of this response video and you have no idea what I do in powerlifting or in USA powerlifting, I'll go a little bit more in depth into it, and that I have some positions in USA powerlifting. One is that I'm a national team coach for one of our teams that competes at the World Championships. I'm also the co-state chair of Florida. I'm also an athlete rep. Being one of the national team coaches, I'm also on the coaching committee by default. Also, for our continental or North American region, our North American Powerlifting Federation, NAPF, I'm also the treasurer, which makes me one of the executives of the NAPF. So I have a number of different positions like that. I'm also a coach for my own personal lifters. I am also a referee since 2013. I'm an IPF Category 2 referee. I also run competitions. We're independent directors for local level. So I run meets here in Florida, and also I've run them in New York. So a lot of different positions, a lot of different perspectives. I've been a member since 2011, and I saw Tim Thebodeau do his video going over USAPL Nationals being a mess. Some things I agree with, some things I disagree with. I have my own thoughts on it. So I figured I'd put out a video and go over point by point what he says and give my thoughts on it. Hopefully you didn't turn into this video thinking I'm just going to bash him or that I'm going to agree with everything with him. Everyone has a different perspective. Everyone has different thoughts on how things should be done this year, since it is a very odd year. So I figured I'd give my thoughts out there and see if you guys agree with that, or if you agree more with Tim or with someone else. Also, just want to throw in there that I do have all these positions with USAPL, but USAPL did not ask me to make this video. They do not know I'm making this video. I'm not representing USAPL in this video. I'm just representing myself and my own thoughts from all these years of experience that I have in USAPL and just powerlifting in general in all the different positions, and as an athlete myself, since I do compete every single year except for last year because of the pandemic. And so the first thing Tim said at the beginning of his video is that he should not receive any hate or be treated differently for voicing his opinion. And that is true, and I agree with him, and it should not happen. And this shouldn't happen for any person, whether you are in a position of USAPL like me, whether you're just a member like Tim, or you are a non-member as well. We do have a code of conduct, and maybe there's more restriction on someone like me who is in various positions that have been voted on, and there's things that I can or cannot say, but it's a lot more open to what you can say if you are just a member. Just because you disagree with the organization doesn't mean they're going to ban you or treat you differently or anything like that. And what I'll also add, again, not a diss to Tim or any of the people on social media, is lots of people do not watch these videos. They're not aware of the posts. Lots of people aren't on social media, especially the older age. Maybe they're on Facebook, but they're not on Instagram, or they're not on TikTok. Maybe they don't know Tim's YouTube channel or even mine. There's some state chairs, referees, and stuff like that have no idea that my YouTube channel exists. So they may not even see these videos or be going out and looking for these videos to use it against you. The next point that Tim makes is that him and the people that agree with him want what's best for the sport. And I agree with him. I also want what's best for the sport, but I also want you people to think about and realize that those people in positions of power, whether it's the IPF, whether it's the NAPF or USA Powerlifting, also want what's best in the sport. And this is something that I have to tell myself at times too, is that maybe I disagree with something that the EC does, and even within the EC, they may disagree with each other as well. There's the president, the vice president, the secretary, the treasurer, and also 7 non-officer positions. So between those 11 and the executive director, which has some different roles, they may not agree on everything. They vote on stuff, and maybe 2, 3, 4 people disagree. Doesn't mean that the one person thinks that the other people are basically in it for money, or that we should be thinking that they're in it for money or fame and that they don't want what's best for the sport. They all were or are still competitors. They came into powerlifting as a lifter, and they took these positions to help out the organization, or maybe because they had to. And so we have to assume that they have good intentions, and they also want what's best for the sport and what's best for the organization. And obviously what's going to help out the organization is doing stuff that helps out the lifters, since, like Tim says, they're the ones who bring in the money and all that kinds of stuff. All right, he goes into the topic of the schedule change, and he briefly mentioned this, and it's not really an argument or anything like that. I agree with him there, is that he's mentioning how the meets have changed where they're split off by age divisions. So now the high school has the teen nationals with it. The collegiate nationals has the junior nationals with it. And then the Masters and the Open are the separate meet in June in Daytona. This is one, because of the pandemic, you want to spread people out. It also possibly helps those independent meet directors that are running high school and collegiate nationals that may not get as many lifters as they expected, where they can now have the teens and juniors in there to help basically with some of their costs if they have higher expenses and now they're getting less revenue. Also, a thing to note is that IPF was going to make this change in the first place. They were already splitting off the Masters from the Raw Worlds, and then coming up in next year, they're already going to split off the Sub-Juniors and Juniors from Raw Worlds. So your Raw Worlds, your Classic Worlds is now going to be only the Open division. So the IPF was already planning for this, so this is actually a good thing if we can get our schedule to match with them to have our age division national split, so it's easier to select our teams rather than having all the age divisions compete at one Raw Nationals, and then depending on when the IPF championship is for that age division, you may have a quick turnaround of 1 month, you may have a late turnaround of 11 months, and then it gets a little bit hectic. All right, then he goes into the topic of signing up, and the first thing it brings up is that he's unsure what happens if someone wants to change their weight class. I am not 100% sure on this, but I'm pretty certain that you can change your weight class. So if you were a top lifter in 2019 in the 83s and you get the invite, you can go 93s, you can go 105s, 120s, 120 pluses. You have to have hit the qualifying total. So the invite is based on the performance that you had. Now you're invited to the championship, and you can pick wherever you want to go as long as you are qualified for that position. So you will see some changes of people moving up and down weight classes based on what they've been doing since they last competed. And in addition, already they have the change with the 72 kilo class is gone. We now have the 69 and 76 kilo weight class on the women's side. So you're going to get lots of changes there anyways for all those ladies that maybe get the invite based on the 72s, but the 72s does not exist anymore. He also mentions the additional invites. The first invites they sent out were one set of invites for February 1st and one set of invites for February 8th. Then later on, after the fact, they added on another invite to the February 8th, that second group, and that is based on the top 3 in each weight class for 2019 across all the meets. And yes, this is after the fact. We did not know that they were going to make some kind of change. Yes, this brings more people into the invite category and takes away from the open March 1st invite list, the third tier. But this is what people wanted. So lots of people were yelling online, yelling different things. But one of the things people were saying, and that I noticed too in talking to people and looking into it, is some people did not fit the 2 categories from the 2 invite tiers because they didn't compete. So if someone hadn't done 2019 Raw Nationals and hadn't competed in 2020, they're not eligible for either of the rankings and they wouldn't be invited. But they may be a top lifter. For example, Daniela Mello did 2019 Worlds. She got second place. She chose not to do Raw National. She chose not to compete in 2020. So she would have had to wait till March 1st with everyone else. And there's some other people that would have made that category like John Gruden, David Wilson, and Tina Donishman. So these are all top level lifters that have competed at Worlds. They have won Nationals or maybe placed in the top 3 at Nationals, but they didn't fall into those 2 categories. People were saying these are elite lifters. They should be allowed in. So USAPL actually listened to this and they made the change and did this new little extra rankings, the top 3 from 2019, to get some of these extra people in. So again, while maybe after the fact, and maybe they should have figured this out in the beginning, you should take this as a positive that they listened to people and they made the change to get those elite lifters in. All right, next in the video, Tim kind of talks about what his ideas are, or he would set his hierarchy, or what top lifters he would take. He mentions bringing top 10 from 2019 Raw Nationals instead, and top 5 from the 2020 rankings. And it's all basically where you would set your limit. So now we're going into finer points of things of where you would set, where you take for each year versus where I would set, and the biases we have. Maybe I would set it where it benefit my lifters. Maybe Tim would set it where it benefits his friends. Maybe USAPL will set it where they can get new people versus old people. Because one of the things people don't also think about is we constantly have new people coming in the sport and constantly people getting stronger and stronger. So what was the top 10 on Raw Nationals in 2019 maybe way different than who's actually the top 10 now. And also in 2020, some people may have not been able to compete because maybe there's no meets, maybe they don't want to be in danger, putting themselves at risk at a competition, so they chose not to compete. So they may be a stronger lifter, they just chose not to compete. And then again, anyone who's new in 2021, in January, February, you could have a top lifter come into the sport brand new, hit the qualifying total. Maybe they have a top 5 all-time total. But if you're only taking top 10 from 2019 Raw Nationals and top 5 from the 2020 rankings, you may be filling up all the spots, and then those people cannot even get in. So it depends on what you consider top versus me versus USAPL is all subjective. But just as an example, since he does bring up Angelo Fortino, is Angelo got 4th place in the 2020 rankings, and you would assume, okay, he's 4th place, he's a top lifter, should get in. But if you go to Open IPF and you look at the all-time rankings for that weight class by total for USAPL, he's actually ranked 10th. So he's not 4th, he is 10th because those lifters did not compete in 2020. Now you can take out John Hack since he's no longer in USAPL, and you can take out Taylor Atwood from that Open IPF rankings because Taylor didn't meet at 83s, but he's really a 74, but that still moves him to 8th place. So really in Open IPF in that weight class across all years, he's actually 8th best, but the 2020 rankings will show him as 4th best because some of those lifters did not compete. So now we're talking about, do you want the 8th best person in automatically, or do you want maybe the top 5 in automatically, and then 6 through 10 just have to compete with everyone else? He also mentions that you could lose out on signing up due to like your Wi-Fi being down or website not working. And yes, I understand this is an issue. Technology is an issue. Sometimes things don't work. What time it opens up, the time zone can affect people. But this is a similar thing that happens with the Arnold. There are some invite-only Arnold events, but there are always 1 or 2 events where you do sign up, and it is basically it opens up at this time. Everyone rushes in. Sometimes the website goes down. Sometimes people's internet goes down. Their credit card doesn't work. And so 1, this is a thing that people should be used to, that it does happen. And 2, this is something that USAPL is familiar with. So maybe they just defaulted to the system that they use for Arnold to do it for here, to basically give those people equal shot. If you're not the top people that get into those low 1st and 2nd tier, or if you're a brand new person, something like that, just getting qualifying total, you all have an equal opportunity. If something happens, unfortunately it happens, you can maybe get your friends or family or stuff like that to try and help you all sign up at the same time, like people do for the Arnold. All right, then he goes on to mention some things like the masses do not like this. Why aren't they listening to the masses? And while I do understand that a lot of people do not like what's going on, I think people forget how big the organization is. Even if we take, let's say, 1,000 lifters that compete at Raw Nationals, that is still only a fraction of when USAPL was 20,000 plus members. So you're talking about a small percentage of people that are actually affected by this thing and actually trying to go to Raw Nationals in the grand scheme of things. In the grand scheme of things, we have the other nationals. Lifters are going to go to high school nationals. Lifters are going to go to collegiate nationals. The bench nationals is separate. The masters national separate. We're only talking about the raw open 3-lift category here. And then there's plenty of lifters that are not qualified for nationals or never want to go, and they don't even know or care what's going on with this stuff. I talked to lifters at all the local Florida meets and some other local meets, and they don't know a lot of these top lifters, who they are. A lot of times they don't even know what I do. They just think I'm just the guy announcing, or I'm the guy just running the meet. They have no idea what involvement I have or who I coach or anything like that, because they're not involved in powerlifting the same way we are. We're like, the loyal fans, the fanatics. They're just there to go, compete against themselves, have fun with their friends on a weekend, do a meet maybe once a year because it's near them, and then they go back to the rest of their life. They're not into any of this political stuff that's going on with USAPL and IPF. They're not into anything that's going on here with the USAPL Nationals. They have no idea what the system is, and so they're not the part of the masses that you guys consider. The masses are the 90-95% of people that just want to compete at local meets and have fun. And then there's those of us here, the 5% or 1% that actually go to nationals and care about nationals and may be affected by this. Also, one thing I want to look into is that we still have the qualifying total. So it's not like I can get into nationals. I'm way far away from the qualifying total. So I want to see how strong is this qualifying total. And so I went back and looked just for 1 year. I just looked at 2019 Raw Nationals and saw for some of the weight classes, how would the qualifying total place at the 2019 Raw Nationals based on the people who actually competed. I don't want to go through every single weight class and make this too long, as this video is already long, replying to all the stuff Tim went through in his video. But just looking at a few weight classes, in the 47 kilo class, the qualifying total would get 7th out of 9 lifters. In the 63s, it would get you 17th out of 43 lifters. In the 84 plus, it give you 24th out of 50 lifters. So that kind of gets you the low end, the middle, and the top end of the women's weight classes. On the men's side, the 59s would get you 17th out of 43 lifters. The 93s would get you 19th out of 43 lifters. And the 120 plus, it would get you 15th out of 34 lifters. So that gets you the bottom, middle, and top of the men's weight classes. So some people are throwing out there, I think maybe incorrectly, 30th place or 50th place is going to get into nationals and take away from 5th place. I think that's an inaccurate statement, because if you are a top 5 lifter for Raw Nationals this year, it's highly likely that you get in from one of those tiers, whether it's 2019 Raw Nationals tier, the 2019 rankings, or the 2020 rankings. So now when we're talking about the next tier of people, we're talking about people who don't make into those groups. They may be, 10th place or 12th place or 15th place, but also the people who are going to be getting in the same opportunity based on these qualifying tools. Some of them are going to get 17th place, 15th place, 7th place, depending on how much stronger people have gotten and who shows up and who doesn't show up. So it's a little bit variable to know how well someone who just basically makes a qualifying total is going to place this year. But I just compared it with that 1 year so you guys can see. All right, then Tim goes into talking about the lifetime membership. And one of the things he says is that you shouldn't pay just to get into nationals. And I agree with him. The point of the lifetime membership is not so that you can just get into nationals and basically squeak in over other people. And I agree that you should not spend that money just to get into nationals, especially if you're not someone who has a ton of discretionary money and you can just throw out whatever it is, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, depending on your age, to get in. The lifetime membership should be something that is either valuable to you, like you think you're going to be around for a long time. Maybe you have a business like me and you can maybe put it as a business write-off as well. Or you're just someone who has extra money and would like to give back to the organization. Lots of nonprofits have that, where you have an opportunity to give back to the organization through that big lump sum lifetime membership or some other kind of membership. So one thing to note is that you should not do that. I agree with you. Another thing to note is that there are not going to be that many people that do it. And a lot of them will be older. For example, back from December when people initially started to do it, we have a Masters 2 lifter here in Florida that signed up for it. They have a lifetime membership with the NRA. So they got the lifetime membership with USAPL. They're not going to sign up for Raw Open Nationals. There's also an M4 lifter on the West Coast that got it, that has been around for a long time. Again, they're a Masters 4, they're in their 70s. They're not going to sign up for Open Raw Nationals and take the spot away from someone else. So I think there's a couple of discussions here of one, whether it's actually going to have an effect. I think it's going to have little to no effect at all. And two, the ethics or the morals behind it. And I think that just depends on what you consider as far as a nonprofit organization, USAPL specifically, a smaller sport and nationals, all that kind of stuff. That's a separate discussion. I don't want to go too deep and spend too much time in this video. All right, the media policy is what Tim goes into next. And one thing I do want to note, which he does say there, is that this was already something that was around before the pandemic, and it was already the plan before 2020 and before 2021. So this is not something that's specific to this year. They're not putting it in place this year just to get extra money or something like that. There's something that was already in place previously, and they're just continuing with this policy going into this year. What I will say though, that it does have some benefits for this year. One being that there's going to be less people around in the warm-up room and less people kind of coming into the coaches platform or coming up from the spectators, because you're going to have the dedicated media team, and then other people are not going to be able to come around and shoot. So you get this sometimes in the warm-up room where you get posse of 5 people coming and shooting from different angles and doing this and that and trying to be in the video and stuff like that. And it can be annoying as for some lifters, some coaches anyways. But for this year also, since there's more risk involved with the whole pandemic, it's better to have less people in the warm-up room and have less people in close contact with each other. And Tim also makes a point that parents just want to film their kids. My argument to that is that they can still film their kids using their phone. There's plenty of phones out there that have really good quality. I use my phone to film all these videos. I use it to film my lifters at local meets from the coach's box. You can get really great footage, 1080p, and sometimes even 4K. And that's going to be good enough for parents who are just there to support their kids and want some good quality photos and videos to remember. They're not going to have potato cam videos just because some media policy. And also they can still buy the package if they want, because oftentimes parents do want to spend money on their kids and get some little extra packages for them. So again, I don't think it's a big issue because they can still film with their phone, which is going to get you great quality. All All right, next, Tim goes into voicing your opinion as a member or as an athlete. And again, I agree with this. You should be voicing your opinion. But what I will say though is while it is great to post things on social media, get maybe more coverage out there to certain groups of people, get a conversation going, you're not going to get to everyone by using social media. And sometimes you're not going to get to key people by posting to social media. Like I said, some of these people don't know who you are. They don't follow you on YouTube or Instagram. They're not going to see your post. They maybe don't have an Instagram account. And so they're not going to see this. So what you have to do is use the systems or processes that are placed in the organization. For us, the key way of communication is email. So if you actually want to voice your opinion and have it have more of an effect, then I would say email your athlete reps and your state chairs. I think that will go a longer way. And then addition to that, as like a second level, is that if you do voice your opinion to athlete reps or your state chair and they disagree with you, what you can do is vote when the voting comes for the athlete reps and state chairs and vote for someone else. If someone's in place and you do like them, then you can vote for them, make sure they're in place and they can advocate for you. If you don't agree with them and someone else is running, you can vote against them and have a new person take over. Or you can run, or you can tell a friend and convince them to run. So for example, like I said, I'm a co-state chair for Florida, and I'm also one of the athlete reps currently in the term. No one has emailed me about this. I see it, obviously. I am on social media. I see people talking about it on Instagram. I'm trying to listen. I watched Tim's video to try and listen, but not one single person has emailed me as an athlete rep or a state chair to voice their opinion and tell me how I should vote and vote out EC members or president or anything like that. People just think that if they post on social media, then they've done their job. And what I'm saying is you should be trying to do more. If you do actually love the sport and you do like USAPL, you want to stick around, then voice your opinion, emailing the people who actually have a vote. And if they don't agree with you, then you can vote for new people. And just as a little note, he does also in this part of the video mention we're the ones who bring the money, we're the ones who bring the spectators, the viewers, and everything like that. And just another thing to know is when you go to the higher level meets, the nationals, the Arnold or World Championships, is that it's a small fraction of the entire membership. Okay, when we send a 100 lifter team to Worlds, 100 lifters is a very small fraction of 20,000. Even if you have 1,000 to 1,500 lifters at Raw Nationals, again, it's very small compared to 20,000. So those are your posting stuff online and having a discussion and seeing Tim's video, maybe watching this. While I'm not saying your opinion does not matter or that it's not important, what you should understand is the grand scheme of things, and that there's a large percentage of people, 75%, 85%, maybe even 90% of people that are not involved with this. They don't know about it. They don't care. All they just want to do is go out and do their own lifting at their local level for themselves. All right, so next, Tim goes into talking about USPA and their drug test division as an alternative. He does say that it depends on region, and I agree with him, both USAPL and USPA and these other federations. It does depend on your region based on who is involved there, how long they've been around. So we have USAPL states that have maybe 1 meet a year or no meets a year. And same thing with USPA. They have some states where they only do non-tested and some states that they do a mix. The test set is growing more and more for what I'm seeing, but it is really dependent on your region again. So you may not find something in your area, or you may not find something that has maybe a lot of depth to it. And then you have to try and go to the next level, which is the USPA tested nationals to actually get some kind of competition. So it depends on how competitive you are as a USAPL athlete and what you consider an alternative as far as how competitive you want to be at the local level or maybe going to other nationals. Also, it's trying to compare the USAPL and the USPA tested kind of apple to apples. I try to go on their website and look at their rule book and see what kind of differences there are. Some things I noticed, again, I'm not 100% sure, but from what I saw is that for their drug testing, they do not have SARMs as a banned substance. So you can take SARMs in USPA drug tested, but you cannot take in USAPL. So it depends on whether you consider that as a level playing field. Also, they do not have any system for applying for TUE. So there are no therapeutic use exemptions. So if you take some kind of prescription medication for your own health, but it's going to cause a drug testing failure, then you can't compete, because if you get tested, you're going to fail that test. Whereas in USAPL and IPF, you can apply for an exemption and get an exemption if it is something like that, like a prescription medication that you have to take. Also, they mentioned that they do no out of meet testing other than in maybe some extreme specific circumstances. So it is only that in meet testing. So you have to understand that there are some downsides to only doing in meet testing when everyone going in knows the possibility of when they're going to be tested as far as the date. Whereas with the out of meet testing in USAPL and IPF, they can show up at any time, anywhere, and out of meet test you. So it's harder for you to time it and maybe try and cycle things or try and cheat the system. So you may have a higher possibility of cheating on the USPA side until they maybe implement a better OMT system if they ever do it. Also, a thing to note for the average person that just wants to compete at the local level is that the USPA is actually more strict when it comes to equipment at the local level than USAPL. I know a lot of people hate on the IPF approved list, but the IPF approved list only applies to higher level meets. For any USAPL local meet, it is in the rulebook. The meet directors have to follow it. The equipment only needs to meet the specifications. So you can buy any piece of equipment like a wrist wrap or knee sleeve from Amazon or from a sporting goods store. As long as it meets the specifications, you can wear it, do your first meet and be fine. But for USPA, they have implemented their own approved list. And at every single USPA meet, regardless of level, the equipment has to be on that USPA approval list. So if you take that same piece of equipment to a local meet, the meet director is going to say, sorry, it doesn't have that USPA approved list. You cannot wear it. So one thing to note is that USPA is more strict that way compared to USAPL. And again, like I said, possibly less competition, less depth. It is growing. I understand that. I agree with that it is growing pretty fast and maybe a faster percentage than USAPL, but the overall absolute amount is less. So you're going to get less competition and less depth. So again, it depends on whether you see that as a true alternative or not. All right, next Tim goes into talking about having more exclusive and high level meets. And again, I agree with him here. I love these little invitational meets or special kind of meets that it's not just like every local meet's the same. It just has a different name on it. It's in a different location. It's run exactly the same. But one thing to note is that you can't do this for every single meet with our current setup because the revenue is just not enough. The number of people is just not enough. And so the amount of investment that a meet director has to put into it, oftentimes they break even or lose money. So they can't do that every single meet and basically want to do that for the entire year for every meet for whatever 5, 10, 20 years, however long the meet director is going to be around. At a certain point, they're just going to say it's not worth it. So you're going to have this mix of some level meets are going to be that exclusive high level meet and have extra features. And some are going to be maybe more bare bones just so that the meet director can get a profit, or maybe the gym can get a profit, a collegiate team can get a profit, so they can basically use it towards their business or whatever they need to and come back the next year and run more meets. If you want them all to be high level meets as far as like live stream, prize money, better equipment, all that kind of stuff, then you have to make the change somewhere in that equation. One place to change it might be that you increase the entry fee. So now you as a lifter, are you going to pay more money? If any bare bones local meet costs $85 or $100 in your area, are you now going to be willing to pay $115, $125, $150 so that you can enter a competition that's a little bit more exclusive, has some more features, and maybe some prize money? So it depends. It's going to be a give and take. Are you going to increase the price? And then lifters are going to complain that it's just too much money. And then Tim finishes with some closing thoughts. And yes, change takes time. So if you're looking to make changes within the sport, whether it's how the meets are run or who's in charge or anything like that, it's going to be small changes over time. Then one day you're going to look back like, man, the Nationals ran in 2019 is way different than the meets that we're running in 2029 or whatever year it is. So you have to be willing to be patient, stay involved in the sport, and slowly make those changes over time. Or your other option, like Tim says, you can always just switch over to somewhere else if you like it better there in the short term. Now, if you're going to stick around, you're going to be patient, and you're going to focus on these small changes over time, then you need to focus on the things that you can control. You as a lifter, you can control like how you train and how strong you get, so you can maybe hit these higher tier lists and get those automatic invites. Also, like I said, you can control emailing athlete reps and state chairs, giving them your opinion on how you think they should vote and what changes they should make. You can also choose who you vote when it comes to athlete rep and state chair, put people in place that you believe in and think they're going to be better for the sport, and slowly see that change over time. And I do think that both meets and federations are improving in a number of ways. It may be hard to see on the day-to-day, month-to-month, or year basis, but for anyone who's been around and can compare meets like when I started in 2011 to let's say like 2015 compared to 2019, there have been some big changes at all levels with basically the quality of meets when it comes to, live stream, meet logos, equipment, prizes, and the nationals with how high level event it is with the backdrops and the best lifter awards and basically the social media aspect of how much they market and everything like that. There's been lots of improvements over time. You have to just sometimes kind of go back and see like, oh man, it was way different. Like when I did 2012 Raw Nationals, like in a 2-platform meet in a church where the platforms were just dropped on the floor and lifters were just standing behind the platforms or sitting behind the platforms waiting for their turn to come out. And another thing to know, I've discussed this topic and other recent USAPL topics in my YouTube videos, on Instagram, on the King List podcast, and other podcasts, is the way that we think. And one quote that I brought up recently in King List podcast for you to think about is that we judge ourselves by our intentions and we judge others by their actions. And that's kind of a bad way of thinking. We have to kind of try and change the way we're thinking, is that when we do something and maybe we do something wrong, we want the person to think like, oh, but our intentions were good. We meant to do this. We made a mistake. We did not know this or that. But when we see someone else's actions, we automatically assume we know everything that's going on. We know their perspective and they must be wrong and we must be right. So you have to take a step back and think about it from their side. Okay, how involved are they in the lifters that you know versus how involved you are in the lifter that you know? You may think you're a friend or you are the best, but maybe they don't see that. They just look at the rankings and see that maybe you are not at the same level as those top level lifters that invited. Or maybe you don't know what else is going on as far as how they decided, what kind of cap they're putting, how they decided the schedule of the meets this year, and all those kinds of things. So we have to kind of go back to what Tim said at the beginning, is how he wants the best for the sport. He wants the best for USAPL. So we have to assume that the intentions of those making the decisions, those above us, are also wanting what's best for the sport and what's best for the USAPL, which is also what's best for the lifters. Not everything is going to be right. We don't agree with everything they do. They don't agree with everything we do. And there may be times where they make mistakes. There's times where we make mistakes, but we can't just assume that they're out to make money. Everything they do is wrong. We know everything and everything we do is right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the information I have in this video, going over Tim's video of what I agree with, what I disagree with, some additional thoughts. And basically, if you want to talk about it more, again, my information is down in the description below. You have my email. You can contact me. Like I said, I have different voting positions. I have different positions, USAPL in general. And the way to communicate is through email first and foremost. But you can always leave comments below. I'll respond to every single comment, regardless of what you put in there. And if you want to learn more about how I became a USAPL national team coach or other USAPL stuff, you can always check out these little videos here I have on the screen. But other than that, hope you guys are having a good week, and I'll see you in that next video.